paper and the thoughts behind them. Haris is a acclaimed and internationally recognized poet in Urdu and English. He has produced 8 collections of verse and a book of creative non-fiction behind him. His collection of poetry, Ishqi Taqdeem Mein and Between You and Your Love, which was in English, were particularly well received. He also won the UPN Literary Excellence Award in 2013 for his collection of verse, Mere Mein. He's well known in these circles, especially in Raza, and I asked him to.
Very generous introduction. Thank you, Fouzia, and I congratulate Fouzia for helping us initiate the discussion. And as she has said herself on a number of occasions, that the attempt is to identify areas of further study in what you call is developing a discourse on indigenous feminism. So I have a few questions which I will just leave for you and the group to further work on, and a few comments. One that tradition and culture are used interchangeably, because I've read the paper also, and I think largely tradition is static and culture is not static. And there are many academics here. It is their forte, I mean your forte, to comment on that. So you can't really apply culture and tradition interchangeably on situations as well as patterns and events. And then you have 6 sections in the paper. One is about themes. You call these themes to be considered within the discourse on indigenous feminism. And you speak about role models. And then which is a very interesting and important example, and I'm not at all against it, but how can a legend be a role model? I think role models are real people, and that's why you see, and I'm just leaving it the thought with you, that Heer, I don't think, is a very popular name in Punjab, whereas Bakhtawar is a popular name in Sindh, or Benazir is a very popular name now in Sindh. And I may be wrong, but the more you see, legends of folklore, icons are very important, but how can you actually translate their stories into being role models for other people? I think that is something that one would really like to understand. And then the other point is about Sufi traditions. Now, I'm afraid I have a different view on that, because you look at 2 major Sufi traditions here. Now, Sufi traditions, I mean, all the Sufis, the Chishtis and others and everybody, one must acknowledge that, they were compassionate towards women. They created shared public spaces, shared cultural spaces, but they were not equal. I mean, women were not equal for, in that tradition. I mean, they were definitely better. They were better treated, perhaps, but not equal. I mean, in the Shia mystic tradition, for instance, I mean, if you look at the Qalandars, there are 2.5 Qalandar, 2.5 Qalandars. So, Wali Qalandar and Shabazz Qalandar and Rabia Basri is half Qalandar. We use a 2.5 Qalandar. And then if you look at the shrines in Pakistan, for instance, maybe Bibiya Pak Daman is the only famous shrine, except for Heer that you have mentioned, but Heer is not considered a Sufi mystic. So it's essentially a male patriarchal tradition, and of course they are compassionate, and of course I would reiterate that they give more space and they treat them with respect and create public spaces. But how can we really go back and find spaces for our discourse now in a tradition which is essentially male? And then if you look at Mohammad Rano, for instance, I mean, the story is told by Shah Abdul Latif Bhai, who is definitely like Raza, who is also a man. So, so likewise, the story of Heer, whether it is the Modar or it is Waris Shah, it's told by men. So I think how much can we historicize and how much can we draw guidance for tomorrow from yesterday is something that we continuously need to question and further explore, as you have rightly said. Then, struggle of agency. I mean, the paper talks about struggle of agency, and I understand that it is just a beginning of a discourse. But I mean, if there is a mention of Fatima Jinnah, there is modern history, something called contemporary or modern history also. So I think it is important to recognize what the Sindhyani Tehreek did, what People's Party did, what the Women's Action Forum did, which are not mentioned here. And I think there is a lot that we can learn from these movements. The networking space, I think again, that networking space exists even now among women. I mean, the kuan is still there, and the tandoor is also there. And you'll find many women entrepreneurs as well. But that does not change the status quo. And so I think networking spaces essentially are family spaces. So that is something that we have to see the link between the family and the family space, for want of a better term, and the public space. Then use of creative arts. I agree completely. I mean, women are invisible. I mean, there is. We know now for sure that in English literature or in Western literary traditions, I mean, there were women who were writing, with male pen names. We may have, actually, some of us know that same was happening here. So women are invisible, they remain invisible, but there is a change, but that change hasn't been brought about by going back to our exploring our traditions. It's a modern thing. Khaleeq is a much superior poet than Malaka Bai Chanda. But Malaka Bai Chanda is important, like Nazar Muhammad is important because he made the one and only, but the first test century for Pakistan in the Lucknow test, 1950 something. But Zahir Abbas or Inzamam ul Haq are far superior batsmen. So likewise, women who are writing now, and again going back to what Amna was raising earlier, are actually much better. We do not recognize that because, so you see, so the creative arts, but I agree with you, I mean the assertions that you have, the position that you have taken. Now, as far as women's use of material culture, pottery, embroidery, etc., that brings in the question of women's labor. And I think any sort of, whether you call it indigenous, because it's problematic because you have a universal term, so there will always be constraints in indigenizing anything which is universal or whatever. Correct me, but the question of, I mean, how can you have a discourse just simply on the basis of identity? So the question of race and class and other matters will any discourse that you create or further will have to bring in all these factors. And then finally, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, he symbolized a movement and a kind of women which we found in the Indus Valley. Or Soni or Sassi, or but what we have to celebrate in our tradition is resistance, there's limited space for drawing lessons from the trends and the fashions and the way society was, or like the Sufi tradition or the society was governed or managed. Or the cultural practices. Past cultural practices, I'm afraid, are largely, I mean, there will be some exceptions to prove the rule, were largely oppressive, not just for women,